Yeah. What's going on, Macro Perspective peeps? Man, ooh, we got a special episode for you today. But before we get into that, please like, comment, and subscribe. And make sure to share. Whenever you share, you're always giving that to someone that you love, you care about, and you're going to be helping out somebody on the audience here, the group, or anyone else coming onto the show. We really appreciate it. But today, guys, I've got a special guest. Marcos and I, we've been waiting on this one. This was a special referral from previous guest, Nick Newwald, and today it is Andrés Preschel of Know Your Physio. Guys, I'm so excited to get in this conversation about like total human optimization and basically discovering yourself and getting deeper into the science. I think this is going to be a great conversation of deep science. So do me a favor. I got a notebook out. If you need to take notes, pause, repeat, whatever it is, this is going to be some deep stuff. If you need to rewatch this one, re-listen to it, do so. I think it's going to be just like that. But Andres, would you mind,
Yeah.
introducing yourself and kind of like where you've been and what you're doing now and what you're excited about, man? That's we'll let you have the space.
Yeah, thank you so much for the intro, man. It's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to have had the referral from Nick, who has played a really important role in my life. Honestly, a bigger role than I think he knows. So I'm going to make sure to really thank him after this episode. Uh, you guys had him on the show recently, and for the folks that tuned into that episode, we went to the same school. We were in the same program. He was a couple years ahead of me. He was my teacher assistant, and he was a huge inspiration for me as well. Him and Wes Smith, who he mentioned on the previous episode, our professor. Anyway, I believe that the ultimate way to optimize your health is to discover your science. I think that interoception, which is a fancy way of describing a deep bodily awareness in physiology, is the prerequisite for the vast amount of information that we're constantly bombarded with online. Like if you go on Instagram right now and you have any interest in health and fitness, you're going to see this guy says this guy says that. Oh my God, this is what's happening in my body. You're self-diagnosing. You're just going crazy, bouncing off the walls with information. And I believe that if you have knowledge of your physiology, knowledge of physiology and anatomy in general, and you've learned to apply it and to test yourself, to sort of run this N of 1 equals study on yourself, then all of a sudden, everything that you do has a little more evidence. Everything that you do gives you more agency in the process of improving your health and fitness. And I believe people deserve to explore that, and they deserve to enjoy that level of awareness. So that's why I started Know Your Physio. Really, if we want to take it way back, I started this because I was very sick for a long time, taking all kinds of, medicine for ADD. I took it for about a decade, and I was neglecting my health in the process while reinforcing a version of myself that society wanted me to be, that the modern school system wanted me to be like. And my parents were doing a great job. They were trying to help me out. Just, I love them, and I think they did a great job with the meds and with their care and with their love. But I don't think that they realized the level of neglect that was occurring in my personal health and well-being. And when I first got a taste of neuroplasticity during a neuroscience summer scholars program at the University of Miami while I was in high school, it was in that environment where I learned that the brain can actually change, and how your environment and your lifestyle can change the brain, that I started to become obsessed with that science. And because I was on a college campus with unlimited access to the gym, dining hall, social life, I started to add in the elements that I otherwise didn't have. And all of a sudden, I started to change. I started to become more confident than ever before. I gained a ton of weight. I was super skinny. I was skeletal, really. I was social. I was sleeping better. And I started to reveal and unleash my real genius. And I think a lot of people see like, amphetamines and ADD as like this artificial genius or this artificial focus. I had been told my whole life until that point that I couldn't get by without this stuff. And when I started to learn about the brain and about applied physiology, I started to just bring this authenticity to life. And that was something that changed me forever. I became so obsessed that I immediately signed up for a physiology degree at the University of Miami with a background in psychology, went off to do a master's in nutrition. Unfortunately, due to COVID, halfway through the program, it was dissolved. And now I'm doing a master's in a biomedical neuroscience. And in the process of, learning the things that I was genuinely passionate about and improving on a personal level, I knew deep down that if I could master this process myself, that inevitably I would have the tools to help others because it was an obsession. I was selfish, and through being selfish with this science, it became a selfless passion. I think sometimes it takes being selfish to be selfless. And now, beyond the degree that I got, beyond doing this master's program, beyond working with some of the best athletes in the world and top, Fortune 100 CEOs and you name it, I think the best type of credibility that I have is the fact that I can empathize with folks that neglect their science, that are sick, that are unhealthy. The fact that I can put myself in their shoes allows me to relay this information in a much, much better way because I've been there. And so, in a nutshell, that's what's happened over the past, I don't know, 15, 16 years. I'm 26 years old. And, flash forward to today, like, I'm just so grateful and so happy with where I'm at and my ability to help other people. It's been absolutely amazing. And I couldn't imagine a more rewarding career and lifestyle, genuinely speaking.
Yeah. Wow. I love that. I had to take some note on that,
Where,
Marcos.
I literally was like, where do we want to take this conversation? Because there's probably so many iterations of this episode just from like that intro alone. But what you said about the requires like some selfishness to become more selfless. I think I've quoted that. Like that's like me quoting myself. Like with every one of my clients that I've worked with, like it's okay to do things for yourself first so that you can be better for others.
Yeah.
Like, so like, as soon as you said that, I was like, have I been doing this applied psychology and applied like, applied physio type of stuff like this whole time, like unbeknownst to me, because obviously I'm not studying it. I'm just kind of applying stuff. Um, but yeah, so first, Seamus, I meant to add this too. For anybody that is listening, that's what the show notes are actually for. Like, so if there's spots where you thought you wanted to take a note, we make sure that those things are there. So go hit the timestamp based on different things, and that'll make your life a hell of a lot easier. We're kind of already taking notes for people, and if you want to like dive deeper and some of the like applied stuff that Andres will talk
Yeah.
about, I think will be super helpful.
Yeah.
But okay, so when I have a question about like personality types, right? And people that you've worked with, is you're mentioning a wide array of people. Like one, who's like your favorite person to work with, right? Like, and like I guess I'm like an archetype there. But two, like which ones do you also like learn the most about yourself from?
That's a great question. And by personality types, do you literally mean like the 16
No,
personality?
no, because I feel like that's kind of still like putting people into a box, and I know that people are a little more
Yeah.
unique than that. Like, um,
You don't want to know my
uh,
horoscope?
That, no, I don't know if I need that necessarily. I mean,
Uh,
I mean, our producer did put up a dossier about like I do know you're a what 3-wing-2 for the Enneagram, and then you're what's
An
the MBT?
INTJA.
What is that? Whatever the
He's
INTJ.
that's like the 1%. 1%. Isn't that?
The
Like
what
INTJ.
does it mean?
Yeah.
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 What
It's
does that actually mean? Give me a little deeper. I guess I don't even know those things. I feel like everybody's put me in a box, and I'm like, I'm not that. It changes every
INTJ is
week.
it's kind of rare, and typically the way people would describe it is like the mastermind. Like I think I genuinely believe and identify with the notion that I'm really good at kind of seeing the big picture and putting little pieces together, connecting the dots. And there's different things that you can look at that you can explore within my unique psychology and that are consistent with that archetype. I actually didn't know much about this. I'd heard it once before in one of my psychology classes, but I was doing a podcast with a guy named Joel Green, who's huge in the nutrition space. And before we got on the show, we were just having a conversation. He's like, "Do you know your personality type?" And I'm like, "Not really." He's like, "You're an INTJ." And I was like, "What does that mean?" Anyway, I ended up doing the test, and sure enough, it was consistent. Uh, Now, of course, yeah, people will have, certain aspects of other archetypes and, whatever, but I think I'm pretty consistent with INTJA. And as far as the Enneagram 3-wing-2, I think that's called the Enchanter. So my parents tend to describe me as a charming guy, and they say that I can be very manipulative as a result. I think they say that's kind of like a tough love. But I think that this plays in nicely with what I do for work. With most of what I do in every format that I do it in, whether it's podcasting or coaching or scientific writing, is I'm taking very boring, mostly boring research, and I'm making it sexy. I'm making it
Yeah.
approachable. And I think you have to have a certain personality type in order to be able to get people excited about stuff that typically isn't so exciting. And so I think that if you can charm people into applying science, I think that
Yeah.
the value of that science is much, much greater. And so, then if you look at my actual systems and how I've built my company, how I've built my brand, my mission, um, yeah, I think you would imagine that it's pretty consistent with the archetype. But again, I'm not going to abide by self-fulfilling prophecy and say, oh, it's my archetype. I can't, be or do anything else. Like, as far
Yeah,
as I know, it's pretty consistent. What's
Yeah.
really
that's
funny
cool.
though is my girlfriend, I forget what hers is, but if you actually look at I believe it's the 16 personalities website. It's like the biggest website
Yeah.
for the personality type tests. I actually ended up identifying, like, it'll show you like, actors or world leaders that have this in common with you. And in my case, it was like Michelle Obama and then Walter White from Breaking Bad. And then hers, and
Uh,
then hers was Walter White's wife and then Barack Obama. So we were like a perfect match.
perfect
And when we
matching.
saw that, we were
Perfect.
freaking out. We were freaked out. We were totally freaked out. But I think,
So
yeah, I
she's not
think
your
it's something
girlfriend no
that
more.
people.
She's your wife.
What's that? Yeah, yeah, right.
So
Like
she's not your
that was.
girlfriend now.
Oh yeah, that was proof that we're meant to be, right? But I'll tell you what. I think
Yeah.
what's really cool about that, and what really humbled me about that process is, and by the way, I'm going to answer your question in a second. What really humbled
Yeah.
me about this process is that it shows you what the weaknesses are. So when you have certain strengths, you have equal and opposite weaknesses. So in my case, sometimes I can be very stubborn. Sometimes I might just kind of do things my way and assume that everyone's on the same page, and that can be pretty shitty sometimes. So it's like tough to see that sometimes, but I also think that it's an incredible opportunity to grow and to refine or to communicate what those weaknesses may be. So when you're in a professional or even a personal setting, you can really streamline that and make the most of what you are and what your qualities may be. Anyway, the
Yeah.
people that I like to work with are typically folks that, number one, are curious and that are ready to learn. Because although I can tell someone and look at all their biometrics, look at in-depth sleep insights, look at their blood work, I have a whole team of board certified medical doctors, functional medicine experts, you name it, on my team. And before we can take this deep dive, I can just tell you what to do. But I believe that if I teach you about your physiology, you're going to have everything you need to get rid of me. And I want you to eventually get rid of me. So you need to be curious. You need to want to learn. And if you can learn, then you'll have everything you need moving forward to make the best of your life. And maybe you don't know the answer, but at least you'll know where to look.
Yeah.
And so I
Yeah.
always tell folks, like, hey, let's get to work. But my goal is for you to never have to depend on me again. And I think that's very motivating for people. I don't tie anyone down to my
Yeah.
program coaching. I say, I want you to get rid of me. I want you to feel that good about your body, your mind, your health. And I'd say most of my
That's so
clients
nice.
are, I guess the age is, I'm trying to refine like the age range. And I guess this is important now for like, targeted ads or whatever. But to be honest with you, the ages range tremendously. Like I've worked with teenagers who are applying to Ivy League schools and have helped them pass their exams and optimize their applications and interviews. I've worked with, older men who are billionaires and now they want to invest in areas of their life that were otherwise neglected and they're, aging populations. I've worked with, some of the best tennis players in the world, top 5% in the world, sorry, top five in the world that are just in their, early 20s. Le Mans race car drivers, number two this year in the Le Mans race, World Series of Poker finalists, number three, which was a $4 million payout. Like they're all completely different in age, but what they have in common is that they're deeply curious and they're willing to do anything to improve even marginally. And so I don't believe that health optimization has to be a sort of micromanaging of health. But if
Yeah.
people give themselves the flexibility to explore the depths of what might be getting in the way of their performance and the next high to 10%, and what may be getting in the way between maintaining that performance and making equal investments in the rest of their life that could otherwise be neglected, like that's the kind of person that I love to work with.
Yeah.
So as long as people are ready to learn, I'm ready to, engage.
No,
You
I
know
love that.
what?
I Marcos, like, sorry to butt in, but like, I freaking love that. Like, I mean, the biggest thing that I took away from there is like your passion to understand people at a deeper level and not necessarily go like hey, you need me forever. Because Marcos and I are very much aligned with that. Like the whole podcast is to give people information, education, and adherence. At the end of the day, with my clients, I want them to not be with me anymore. I want them to not need me. And that's the best position, because then that means you've transferred everything you absolutely can for them to have autonomy. And at the end of the day, for those listening, like, autonomy is an important thing. You don't want to be reliant on someone else. I think in this day and age, you want to be self-reliant, right? We've seen that time and time again in different fields, whether that's medical, 2020, whatever it is. But having that self-reliance, and it's really cool to see that you work with such a vast array of people, whether they're top performers, billionaires, and even, just your run-of-the-mill teenager just trying to get, maybe a scholarship to, maybe a scholarship to college or something. So that's pretty awesome. Marcus, you were going to say something.
No, we all have bad business practices about like wanting people to not work with us at some point,
Yeah,
like,
we really do.
that's like, it's funny because it's literally like all of our end goals to create that like self-autonomy and reliance, and again, understanding these things. And again, it all comes through like an education piece, like you said, like the biomarkers or biometrics of one's data, the n equals 1. It's like, how are you going to make use of your information and actually like take action with it? Because like you said, there's just paralysis analysis culture where it's like, well, Dr. Google said X, and then Bing said this, and ChatGPT said Y. Like, how do I actually like make some formulaic solution to this? And it's like, have you tried to apply something, like anything, or did you just read it all and then just like sat there? And I think that's what great coaches do, and the fact that you're like able to articulate the importance of those things and build them up, probably through like like a system that you've kind of developed over the years, right? And next thing you know, they're like, wow, like I haven't had this much clarity and understanding. And I think, I mean, the team of people that you have at your disposal as well, I think anybody would be foolish not to work with you to get all that insight, especially those younger kids. Like, I don't know if they're doing a biomarker panel with you, but yeah, maybe they're missing, maybe they're literally missing some micronutrients for fucking focus or something. I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
it's just, it's little things like that. Um, I think your story is very much so like mine, right? Like, it wasn't given to us in the way that we can give to the younger generation, right? Or those people coming up. And that's like, I feel like we're all aligned on that exact mission of like, let's educate the people best to our abilities with what we know, with the science of the times, and, tell them when they need to worry and when they shouldn't. I think that's another thing I witness a lot with people is like, aren't you worried about like, getting cancer based off of drinking some diet soda? It's like my wife's like number one thing. I'm like, well, I mean, the studies don't really show that like one a day is really going to kill me. Like, so I think I'll be okay if I have one every now and again. I know I don't need it, but I like it. Balance.
Well, I mean, it plays into
Yeah.
the mental health as well, right? Like if you can build yourself up, if you can build up a certain level of, you know, immunity and resilience, then you can deviate every once in a while. You don't have to worry. I think a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people don't honestly, and I hope this doesn't offend anyone, but I think most people just don't know what it feels like to feel amazing. And so it's
Mm-hmm.
like I was having a conversation last night with some friends. We went out for dinner on a double date, and I was expressing to them how my girlfriend and I, we don't eat gluten, and we're not celiac. It's not gluten per se that's the problem. It's whatever, it's what it's contaminated with, glyphosate and a bunch of nasty stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And that tends to be the case almost always in the US. If I go to Europe, I can have gluten all day long and I have no issues. And so most people also respond very poorly to things like glyphosate, but they've never, ever spent more than 2 weeks without gluten in their diet. And it's like once they get rid of these things and they start feeling better, then they notice a difference, because if they, have it, like it's just they have this baseline that isn't a genuine reflection of their physiological potential. So
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
can do these things, if you can filter out all the crap that is polluting your body, and you can add in a few things that are really, really good for you, that really pack a punch, that are nutrient dense, that are really effective, and on top of that, you're getting good sleep, good recovery. Your body has all the intelligence it needs to take care of itself. And we live in a world that is so modern and so convenient that there is this like biological mismatch, and we never truly get to experience how it feels for our body to live a life that it's designed to live. And I think
Yeah.
that if you can, this is where I use the word biohacking. Like for me, biohacking is being able to sort of add back in the stuff that the modern world leaves out and live a biologically consistent lifestyle. And so there's different means by which you can do that. I don't necessarily think it's like just do it yourself biology, like whatever, try this, try that. because a lot of people will do this blindly. I think that if you can track it, if you have the right mentor, the right expertise, then it's great. Uh, but anyway, yeah, I think most people just don't know what it feels like to feel good.
No, man. Thank you for describing what biohacking meant to you. 10 years ago, biohacking meant to me. Uh, this is just like a little run for the show, but like it meant to me like I didn't really understand it. I thought it was like a whole like, oh, when you biohack, you can focus more, you can do more things, and then there was like the focus drugs that came out, limitless pills and things like this. I remember being like listening to a Tim Ferriss and someone said modafinil, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. Let me order some from Australia or something like that. And then not realizing like, okay, like there's these ways that you can create focus and performance, because I'm a performance athlete as well. I'm doing all these things, where it's not about necessarily additive. Like, hey, you need to add, like you might not want to do it, but like add like, hey, these bunch of nutraceuticals or medications that are we don't know the side effects of, right? Like nootropics or something like that back in the day. It's more basically maybe subtracting some of the stuff that in our day to day that we don't like one of the things I've been realizing is like getting away from this and having like PMF mats around my house, or grounding technology, or just like even just time in the sun, or even just like doing the basics of what our ancestors were doing in today's society, and being able to go
Mm-hmm.
like, oh wow, I feel really focused because I didn't spend an hour on my phone upon waking, or
Yeah.
I feel good with my performance because I'm eating in a whole food diet way, but still having some diet soda or things like that. But then I realized, for me, I'm so sensitive now. Andres, and I was telling this to Marcos, I'm so sensitive to like even foods that are even quote unquote like still healthy. Like maybe some protein bars, quote unquote. But like I'll have like a specific protein bar and they'll have like sugar alcohols in there. And right away I'm like, yep, I'm screwed. Like I know I'm screwed. Like I know I'll be screwed for the rest of the day because like my energy wanes and all this stuff. And I'm so sensitive to that because I've trained my physiology, like you talk about, in a way that's like it has to be a fine-tuned run machine. And maybe I can build up some tolerance to it and things like this, but I just rather feel great all the time and
Yeah.
not mess with that hierarchy, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I do
Yeah.
everything I can nowadays to preserve feeling good, and more than anything else, I love feeling clear. I love the mental clarity. I love having clear, bright energy. Like I'll even visualize sometimes, and this is a little, maybe I don't want to go too far off the deep end here, but I will literally like meditate some mornings when I feel like I have some kind of brain fog, and I envision like a crystal, like a diamond just shining, and I just like I pray for that clarity, and to me that's like just the most wonderful thing, because I can take all of these ideas that I have and I can effectively communicate them. I can write them down. I can share them. I, you know, just feel like I'm doing what I'm meant to be doing when I have that clarity. And that's something that I always strive for.
Yeah, it's just living life unleashed, right? No drag, no friction, just moving through life. Like I think I tell people all the time, like I'm even telling Marcos this, but like even amidst a lot of the chaos that we've been dealing with and things like this, I feel like I am the clearest I've been clear now just because of the last 3 years of work that I've done. Like I don't watch TV on weekdays. I don't do social media as much at the night and evenings. I don't look at provocative stuff on, things like that on the internet. I really like not trying to find cheap dopamine. I don't play video. I'm just like, I feel so clear and so abundant in clarity that I'm like, everything that people say is going to happen, I'm like, it's already written. It's coming our way. It's just, we just got to walk the path and don't
Yeah.
trip about it, So I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Thank you for
And I
sharing.
mean, the
Yeah.
I think the thing for everybody is figuring out like you are the curator of your own environment. And like for me, I don't do any like sit down, sit there meditative like journaling or practice whatsoever per se. But for me, like the meditative state or like the trance I'm in like morning walks on Monday and Friday provides a level of clarity where there's just like a lot of like flooding of thoughts. And then like I kind of like it is kind of the imagery that you put in my head with like the diamond. It's like you want to be rated on that scale like to the utmost clarity, right? Because I mean, Seamus is going through this because he's doing some stuff where he's analyzing um, a particular thing. I don't know if does your girl listen to the podcast, bro? I mean, I don't mean to like call you out.
You know what? To be quite honest, by the time this comes out, it's gonna be fine. And
Okay.
just no one that listens and knows my lady, just don't say this. Like, just don't. But yeah, I'm curating some big leaps and bounds with our relationship, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so I'm sure you got into the store and they're like, "Hey, like, what kind of clarity do you want?" And you're like, "What the fuck does that even mean when it comes to the stone?"
I want it
Literally
super
a
clear,
diamond.
dog.
I want it super clear. It's like, all right, well, that like bumps up the price by like an extra like $1,000 per like grade, and you're like, "Oh, okay,
Yeah.
well, maybe it's a B," but like you're saying, you want yourself to be like the A cut, right? And I think it was just funny because like that imagery, those things, like I feel like I wish I could create that space that you guys talk about, where like meditation. But to me, it's literally like the meditative state, or the state where I feel like my mind is most engaged, is when there's movement, and hence why I'm walking right now. It's like I can actually think far better when my brain isn't trying to go do some other stuff. It's like I'm just trying to listen but move. And I don't know why that's like been what I've created for myself, quote my biohack, right? But it's like the thing that like gets me in a flow state to like think deeper and more clear. So
Well, believe
for
it or
anybody
not,
that's
while
actually
you're
watching
walking,
video, yeah.
you're of the three of us here, you're producing more BDNF, brain derived neurotrophic factor, than the rest of us, and that can certainly help you with clear communication,
Mm-hmm.
uh, decision making, etc. So by definition, you definitely have more of that than we do right now.
I should turn
Well,
on my treadmill then. I should turn on
yeah.
mine too.
Well, I mean, of course, it's like I know most people listen to the audio, so they'll never see this, right? But nonetheless, like it's something that I've put a lot of value and stock into, because every phone call, every interaction, everything that I'm doing is like up and about and moving. And maybe it is like an homage to like Steve Jobs, because I heard like some study that said that he had all of his meetings on the go, and I was like, that sounds like a great way of like killing two birds. And then it was like, oh, but like the flow of ideas, like that conscious state is far easier to tap into. And yeah, I mean, might as well bring out the big guns to actually stay super focused with deep intellectual stimulation like this for our mental boners, you know?
Yeah.
So,
You know what? I'm sure you guys have heard of Ben Greenfield. He's
mm-hmm.
huge in the optimization fitness space. He runs one of the biggest podcasts, has like 3 million podcast subscribers. And he was my idol. He still, in a lot of ways, isn't like an idol for me. And well, now he's more like a friend. We had the chance to hang out recently. We went on a spearfishing trip with his sons. And while we were on that trip, I mean, you got to see just how effective this guy is with exactly that. He's walking all the time. I don't think I ever saw him sitting unless he was eating. I swear. Every
Yeah.
single meeting, walking at a very fast pace. If we had to go anywhere, if it was less than 2 miles, he would walk every
Yep.
meeting
That's
after
awesome.
every single meal. And this guy maintains not 10,
Great
not 8,
physique.
5, but 3% body fat year round. 3% body fat.
It's
And his
wild.
hormones are amazing, and his energy is
Do
amazing.
you do you know
So
do you know
That's,
do you know do you know Eric as well? Roman?
Eric,
Eric Roman?
no.
Oh, okay. I was just wondering because I know you spent some time with Ben, and Eric is like somebody as well that spent some time with him, and it's for those listening, will be on the pod as well. And it sounds like there's a lot of great friends in Ben's field right now, because he's also a good friend of his too. But I just because I it sounded like you might have done one of his retreats or one of the nature things that they do. But no, I think Ben, for both Marcos and I, like, he is a resource that like I heavily utilize. Some would say he's like the godfather of biohacking, and like, my introduction to it more so was the experimentation with yourself came from Tim Ferriss, but then that led me down the path of Ben Greenfield. And you can thank both of those guys, right? Like, but I think Ben has been more of like in that space spearheading it, because you spend more time with him, but he's constantly experimenting with like products, right? New machines, new technologies, and it's just so cool to kind of see like what he's doing. But when I listen to him, and I don't know if this is true too, but like what I got from him was like, at the end of the day, just do what like your ancestors kind of do: walk around, be in the sun, and spend time with your family, be in a tight knit community. And I was like, it kind of like does this like full circle. You optimize, but then it optimizes back to like just do the basics too.
I think the basics are always going to go further than any fancy piece of equipment or therapy, because the basics are something that maybe they're small and seemingly insignificant, but those are the things that add up to make a much bigger difference at the end of the day. And those are the things that
Mhm.
are more consistent with our physiology and our evolution than anything else. So yeah, being in nature, being in the sun, having family, a tribe that you love and spend time with, and then moving your body, like that alone is enough to transform your life. And so that's another reason why I'm careful with the word biohacking, because it sounds so sexy that most people will
Yeah.
gravitate towards that, and ultimately they end up neglecting the basics that have a tremendous, like, just, you can't even compare the two when you want to talk about overall efficacy when it comes to improving health and well-being.
Well, my
Yeah.
question. Go ahead, Marcos. Go ahead, Marcos.
No, that's where I think your word with optimization is a far better way of explaining it, because a lot of the stuff that's the quote hack is
Yeah.
like you have to do something that's like, again, it's simple, but it's not necessarily easy, right?
Yeah.
Like and like that's the thing, is like there's a difference between simplicity and some like the task being easy. All the things with nutrition by definition are very simple. Yet why do we all struggle with it? Or why is it there's a deeper relationship with it? Or why is it that you identify as this thing being healthy versus that? Or why are you classifying food in that way? But yeah,
Hmm.
like I actually I really do think like your tagline with your actual like organization, I guess organization, no, with your business, right? Like discovering the science and optimizing your life, right? Like that is really beautiful in the sense, because we're all looking to optimize our life. We want to be able to make the best use of our time, feel productive as hell, but be happy in the process. And as Seamus and I have embarked on this journey, there's been a ton of optimization unbeknownst to uh, myself initially, but now it's like, oh, well, this is the lowest weight I've maintained with like no problem whatsoever in over 3 years, right? Granted, there was like a massive surplus to try to like put on muscle, but I'm like, oh, it's like finally being optimized. But like, what allowed for the optimization state to occur? It was like stacking up these little things over and over and over again until it just became really habitual. So
Yep.
I love the optimization angle more so than biohacking, because biohacking, like you said, it's played out, it sounds cheesy, and it's still not necessarily something that would ever be easy.
And it implies like hack, like it implies like hacker, like hey, you're trying to hack a system, or like short stacking a system, or like doing the shortcut. And it's like, there's no shortcut when it comes to optimization. You got to figure that out. You got to tinker. And I like to say iterate, like the more you fail, the more data you have to figure out what the next step is going to be. Thomas Edison took him 1,000, horsehairs to figure out the light. It's the same thing with your health. It's like you got to figure out like what works, and it's a day-to-day process. I mean, you do that with your clients, we do that with our clients. We just make recommendations, and then as soon as like they find it, they're like off to the races. They run that, and then it's like they're so happy. I'm so happy, and it's just like it's there. I wanted to ask, and just like with that being said, I know you talked about your brain. I think this would be a good one to talk about. I look at the brain a lot, actually. We do a lot of neurocognitive stuff as well. Have you heard of the Wabi scan before?
The Wavi scan.
Yeah, yeah.
WAVI.
I think I have. Is it like the blue mesh looking thing for the brain?
Something
Is that
like
like a
that.
Yeah, it's like a little
Yeah,
helmet.
neurofeedback?
It's like a helmet.
it's like a
It looks
Yeah,
like
neural.
yeah.
you're
Yeah.
I
yeah.
haven't done that, but my friend Toby Pasman is board certified in neurofeedback, and I've done a lot of experimentation with his platform and his technologies, and that's been absolutely amazing. I got the chance to see the different areas of activity in my brain, what was optimized for, what, where there were maybe certain deficiencies relative to my baseline. Um, he actually was able to recommend supplements and lifestyle changes based on that. It was absolutely amazing getting to know my brain at that level. And the training that we had was just, I mean, to give you guys an example, I told him, I said, I want to, improve my focus. And
Yeah.
when I find focus, when I actually find my focus, it is laser focus. It is insane. If I get if I when I, if and when I find my focus, and I'm constantly striving to improve that, and it's nowadays it's really really good. But I want to even take it even further. When I have my focus, I can get 2 months worth of work done in like 2 hours. It is insane. It
Yeah.
is crazy. It is insane.
Break that down. Break that down for people. I bet you people are wondering, like, how does he get 2 months of? Break that down. How do you do
I mean, I think
that?
also being an entrepreneur, it gives you the flexibility and the freedom to do something like that. I think a lot of the barriers for entrepreneurs can be in figuring out the right system or the right process, and and you have to really think hard about how you can work on a certain area of your business to get, you know,
Hmm.
uh, uh, exponential returns. And I don't just mean financially; I also mean by degrees of freedom that you get to, enjoy in your life, time you get to save, people you get to empower within your team. They're now more motivated and they're better in their positions. So anyway, like I can get I can get months worth of work done because I'm in that position. But as an employee, I don't think that most people who are employed have that
Yeah.
kind of they can't
Yeah.
necessarily do that. I think, however, that everyone has certain talent and skills that they can do freelance work with, and so they can have a hybrid, or maybe eventually they can become entrepreneurs. I think everyone on this planet knows something that I don't know and that you guys don't know. And I know that
Yeah.
they can leverage that and not necessarily just make dollars, like just provide solutions for the rest of the world. And so I think that if you start to think about your process this way and your impact this way, that if you do find hyper focus, it can literally save you months or years of time and effort down the line. And it can really make you so much more fulfilled. And I'm very passionate always about streamlining my workflows. I'm
Very, well,
constantly striving to isolate the things that only I can do and working with the
Yeah.
right people to handle the rest.
quick
Man,
question there. Do,
Marcos,
do you
how
find do
funny
you
is
do
that?
no, I don't know. Do you feel like the environment that you set yourself in plays a huge role with that? Like literally,
Like
like the space that you're in,
literally the space that I'm in, like physically.
literally the space, like physically.
I think I work the best when there's other people around me that are kind of working. So like I love coffee shops for that reason. I love just kind of I'm the kind and actually there's a lot of good science that supports this. Like multitasking in a way can make you more productive, especially if you have like
Mm-hmm.
ADD. So it's like if I'm totally isolated, I honestly don't even focus that well because I feel like I can just kind of get by doing whatever the hell I want. Like if I get distracted, like no one's there to like hold me
Hmm.
accountable. And I feel
Love
like when other
doing.
people are kind of there doing their own thing, I kind of have to play the part. And I also get to like
Yeah.
look up every once in a while, see someone walking in, maybe get up and get a coffee. And so I have these like I'm still in this deep focus, but I have these like short bursts that are extremely productive. They're broken up to give me a little bit of just a moment to breathe and relax, and then I can jump right back in.
Yeah.
That is a huge passion of mine. I'm obsessed with productivity. And I think
I
entrepreneurship
love
and
that.
business is really fun because I get to see how my personal health, well being, and performance plays a role in my impact, my mission, my
Hmm.
finances. And it's amazing. It's like a game. It's
Yeah.
so much fun.
it's it's so funny how you speak about that because like that's exactly like I resonate with that. Like I have my own space to work and I could get that stuff done, but I agree with like I remember in college I blocked out 8 hours for like studying once at a coffee shop, and because it was in the coffee shop and exactly what you're talking about, like I don't know what happened, but I guess I flowed into what a flow state, and it was like I put the I can tell the audience, but like Daft Punk 2007 Alive
I love
live,
Daft Punk.
I love Daft Punk. Put that album on, a live one with her in France, and I just as soon as that goes in, I automatically have trained my like my physiology, kind of like Tony Robbins style, like to where it goes right into the flow state. And I remember I blocked out 8 hours because I kind of like I was like, oh, I need to do this. I was done in two. I was done in two. Like I just
Yeah.
like it was so deep into that state, and like it was in a coffee shop. But if I did it at the library, let's just say, or like a white wall space, I'd be like, oh, just sitting here for a while. So, no, that's that's so funny. Like being able to like lock into pro states productivity, maybe Pomodoro methods, things like this that are like super vital for leveraging focus. Man, it's great.
Yeah. And right now, my environment's totally, it's changing all the time. I'm very nomadic right now. Like I told you guys before we started the show that I'm buying an apartment in Miami now, and I've just been traveling all over the world. I have a lot of travel that I'm looking forward to the next few months. And so that's been a challenge in and of itself because I have to
Yeah,
constantly try and get my environment to work for me. So I have to, apply things that apply what I know, do the best with what I've got. And it's difficult at first. It's very uncomfortable, but I always think that there's growth in that. And I think that it's made me a much higher performer because I'm willing to suffer in order to learn. And I think that that goes hand in hand with the creativity that I discussed earlier. It's like a lot of people, when they start working with me, they realize in fact, how bad some of their habits are. In fact, how bad some of their lifestyle, systems are. And it's like until they have that evidence, which can be honestly sometimes very hard hitting and very unfortunate, um, they're not genuinely motivated. And if you actually look at the brain and the uh, how we become motivated, there's about 6 different areas of the brain that motivate us. The number one being the amygdala or the fear center. It's the fear of what will happen
Yeah.
unless we do what we have to do. And so I do a lot of fear setting, which actually ties in nicely to Tim Ferriss because he's a big, believer in this fear setting.
Practiced
Um,
a lot of stoicism,
and,
man.
and
So I do that.
and I show people, I'm like, look, like, I don't just tell them, hey, look at your data, look what's going to happen. I'm like, I just show them the data and they make the same conclusion that I'm making, but on their end, and I really like to kind of create an environment where people see things through themselves. And now all of a sudden they're listening a little more closely. They're even more curious and they're even more inspired. It can be difficult at first, but once you get into that
Yeah.
journey, it's just reward after reward after reward after reward. And it's amazing. It's beautiful to watch people unfold and unleash their potential in this fashion.
Yeah. Fine. I
It-
just want to say one thing though, Marcos, and I'll get to you. Like you know what I love is I told this to Marcos like 6 months ago. Like I fear sat this moment. I fear sat exactly what we were just talking about like 20 minutes ago. I think fear setting is much more, in my opinion, for me, practicing some stoicism, fear setting, and actually doing that stuff is more beneficial for me than it is goal setting, because you visualize everything that can go wrong. And as an entrepreneur and as a leader, as a person in this world, I'd rather visualize what can go wrong because then I can find a way to flip the script. I'd rather go through the fear now than like deal with it later. And then you realize, oh, in reality, like I'm chilling, I'm all right. But Marcus, go ahead, man. That was a deep talk right there.
Nah, I think this is bring it back to like why I asked the environment question was when we finally got together versus the virtual setting of these meetings that we've been doing behind the scenes here. It was like the same thing. It was a catalyst. It was like we got all these things down in literally like in a total of 4 hours, and then like we just got to enjoy each other's company and like have more
Yeah.
shooting the shit time. And I know that our producer was like, we should have been doing more things. I was like, no. You're overthinking it. Like we got everything down that we needed to actually get down.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
just trust me, like these things are, we'll call it our mastermind, right? It was just a matter of us all being in the same physical space together to feed off each other's energy, because it becomes a little inconsistent in this virtual world right now. That's why I'm like, for you, what is that space? It's a being around people, right? I work entirely remotely, so I'm generally not around anybody but like emptiness in this house, And it actually dawned on me in the last almost 2 years now with all this work travel that I've been looking forward to these interactions of new places, like the failure points, really, because every time you then hit that failure, it it actually makes sense on how to pivot and make it right. And I tell this to the clients I work with all the time. They're like, "Oh, I see you're traveling. How like you can take food?" I was like, "Yeah, you just can't take Greek yogurt. I had to throw it away. They wouldn't let me take my fucking baby food pouches because it was over the legal limit. I had literally it was like $15 of fuel for fires, and, and I was so fucking mad. I was like, well, no, it's my baby. It's my baby food. It has like whey protein in it for them. They're like, well, where's your baby? I was like, they already are in the terminal. Like, they're like, let me just please. They're like, nope, sorry. It's 4.2. It needed to be 3.4. I'm like,
Oh,
you've got to be
wow.
kidding me. I know, right? Tried every which way. Basically, if I could have produced the baby in that moment, they would have let it slide. But I wasn't traveling with I wasn't traveling with my kids. But all those failure points, all those moments that I'm dealing with like a psychological response, right? Because it was all mental at the end of the day. Missing connecting flights, dealing with these stressors, and actually kind of getting a feel for what a lot of these high level executive people actually experience far more frequently than I did, gave me perspective in a way that I like wouldn't have even imagined. And it's like, all right, now let's like find the solution, right? Like this is where the fun actually happened. And now I have like, my particular N=1 situational day that is when I have to fly for 7 hours. It is when I get to a different city. It is about the walking. It's all these things that are wrapped in like this identity that I think a lot of people can curate, but there's an initial resistance, right? And then like we all know that resistance is going to exist. Once you break through it, and on the other side, you're like, wow, like I didn't need to actually work out. I just needed to walk everywhere on a work trip. Who knew? But the mind does a lot of crazy things. Like you said, the different areas that get stimulated constantly. Um, Hell, like I always feel like I'm gonna get on this plane. I'm gonna get some productive work done. I never get shit done. I ain't not gonna lie. Like I am the least productive person in the air. Like mainly because they're gonna charge me $8 for fucking Wi-Fi. And I'm like, hell no, I'm not paying for that until I reach that A-list preferred status. You know what I'm saying? And even then, I think I won't do it because they're like, you guys talk about your meditative moments. The first 30 minutes of a flight for me, I always just close my eyes and like kind of zonk. Like there's nothing like going on in my brain, and except for like the weird white noise of the plane. It's like super soothing. And I like wake up from it and I was like, oh, I have like this stroke of like motivation. I'm writing stuff down, usually texting Seamus and Rachel about like ideas and shit. And it's like, now I look forward to that. And I get another one of those on Tuesday. So if you're ready, Seamus, I'm gonna be sending it your way.
I love that. I mean, I think it's how do we say it? In this day and age, and I think Andres could talk about this, but like in this day and age, it's so easy to not have space, and I think people feel like they need to fill up space a lot, right?
Mm.
And they feel like they need to be productive, and they feel like they need to always be optimizing, even though we are using the word optimizing for time and things. One of the things that I found to be very beneficial for me, like the other day, I finished all my work at like 3, but I'm not usually done until 7. Did I go chase 4 more hours of work? No, I just went for a walk. I got off the phone. And you know what? For the first time in a while, I was kind of like, I'm bored. And I think a lot of people forget the feeling of boredom in today's day and age. And I'm not talking about boredom as in like there's nothing to do. I mean, being like genuinely having space and you don't need to fill it up, you know? I think that's really important for the brain, right? Andres, would you say so? Like finding space, boredom, or it's kind of just like nothingness sometimes.
I think it absolutely is for so many reasons. I think what a lot of people are lacking is presence. And I think that unless you're bored and you notice that you have nothing to do, like if you just automatically, reach for your phone, doom scroll Instagram or TikTok, or, you start watching some teachers to kind of keep you busy because you think that otherwise you're not being productive or you're not being happy. I mean, all of a sudden, what you're reinforcing against, in my opinion, oftentimes is this presence. Just notice your body. Like, for example, everyone tuning in right now, we're all breathing. I think if you pay some more attention to the way that you breathe, you can get your breath to work for you. And that's
You
extremely
you got
powerful.
me
Like,
thinking about something.
it's
You
unbelievable
got me.
how
Have you?
how often people overlook something as simple as breathing. If
Mhm.
everyone
Yeah.
who's tuning in right now ensures that they're breathing through their nose, using their belly or their diaphragm, all of a sudden you are engaging the vagus nerve a little more. You're putting yourself in more of a parasympathetic or calming recovery state. You're filtering the air better. You get to promote nitric oxide in the nasal passage and in the sinuses, which is antibacterial, antimicrobial, antifungal, antiviral. The nitric oxide is a vasodilator. It literally opens up your blood vessels and lowers your resting heart rate, lowers your blood pressure, gives you more oxygen. Like it's as simple as that. It's the most accessible way to influence your physiology, breath work. And it just kind of goes hand in hand with that boredom. I think a lot of people are just in this chronically stressed state, and they're in this state of where they constantly think they need to be stressed to get by. But I think that by being bored, you give yourself the presence, the creativity, and the freedom to think intelligently about what's the most important, how can you get there, and how can you optimize your body so that it works for you, not against you, in your mission to get where you want to be.
That's small little things again adding up. Like the nasal breathing one's a good example of that. And you got me thinking about that. Like there was this video. Sorry, I didn't like. You just got me excited because it like literally brought this idea in my head about. There was this was it real? It was real yesterday. That was literally talking about like, um, like when you're not like consciously thinking about like what you do autonomously, right? And it was like you're now thinking about your breath because you brought it, like you literally said it, right? And then like in the video, like trigger the fact like you're like focusing on your breath. It's like now you're like now your focus is over here, or like now you're not even paying attention that you're not feeling your foot or whatever it was. And I wish I had it, I could just send it to all of us because it was like the most anxiety triggering thing that I've like watched in a while. But it's like a lot of the times you're just blissfully unaware about all the things you do at rest. Like you just said, like taking more attention to make that be your like autonomous state is something that effectively is what you're talking about, optimization, right? Who doesn't want to sleep better because they're trying to focus on breathing through their nose? And I mean, I'd ask this question: do you have a lot of people who ever use like mouth tape or something like that to try to like improve
Yeah,
sleep
yeah, that's one
quality?
way. Absolutely, that's one way. That's one way to guarantee it for folks that have trouble. But I think that if you can set the physiological stage for sleep before you go to bed, making it as dark as possible, as quiet as possible, as cool as possible, you're very good about blocking blue wavelengths of light. So you're either enjoying the sunset or you have amber colored light bulbs, or really the best, in my opinion, is wearing an amber colored pair of blue blocking glasses. If you start to simulate the sun going down and the environment getting dark and cool and quiet, all of a sudden your body's naturally going to be breathing through the nose. I think mouth tape has the highest return on investment if you're going to sleep stressed and if you don't have an environment that's optimized for sleep, because it will just guarantee in that case that you're nasal breathing. But I'm always a believer in that if you build the right habits, you build the right environment and the right level of awareness, that it's going to go a lot further. Because like I don't even have mouth tape on me right now, but I trust my body to nasal breathe throughout the night by doing the things that I do have control over. So I think it's a matter of doing the best with what you've got, and awareness of your body, knowledge of your body is always going to go further. But yes, I do use mouth tape with my clients.
Well, so this brings me to another question then. The validity of that, the states, or the deeper state of like the restful sleep, because we had a doctor on one of our teams really like poo Seamus about like that suggestion based on
Wrecked me.
no wrecked him. Basically, he was like shitting all over him
What,
because
what
he's
was
like, there's
his,
no like,
what was his
he's like,
argument?
there's no validity. I'm not going to go recommend
What kind of
my
doctor is he?
patient to you. I mean, an MD.
A what? A what? Sorry.
MD. He's a medical doctor.
I was
So I mean,
referencing like James Nestor's like book Breathe. I'm like, well, I can bring you the studies that like they did. They're relatively new. The book only came out a few years ago.
doctors aren't taught to breathe. Every doctor that I know, 99.9% of doctors that I know, and I was a pre-med, I did tons of shadowing. I work with a ton of doctors. They're Harvard doctors. They're good. They're great doctors. They will tell me time and time again, hey, we never learned this shit in school. Like, we're working with you, we're working with people like you, and we never learned anything about nutrition, anything about breathing. And most
Yeah,
doctors are super unhealthy. They don't have their bodily awareness. They're taught to diagnose pathology, or disease states, and they're taught to prescribe medicine as a result. And they don't see lifestyle change as medicine. Oftentimes, they don't see things as simple as
yeah,
modifying your breathing as medicine. But as a physiologist, I understand the way the body works, and I understand our stress response. I understand how breathing influences the way that the body works. I understand how breathing through the mouth versus breathing through the nose influences vagus nerve activity. I have tens of thousands of data points, millions and billions, really, if you look at the platforms that show mouth breathing versus nasal breathing and the influence that it has on your HRV, your sleep latency, your awakenings, your deep sleep percentage, your recovery score the next day.
yeah.
Nowadays we have all the evidence that we need, and through the applied science that doctors don't know. Unfortunately, I'm not shitting on doctors. I love doctors. I work with doctors every single day, but they simply aren't taught this stuff. There's no reason to teach them this
I think
stuff.
I think
Mm-hmm.
Marcos, just to piggyback off like what that, I think we were talking about behavior change primarily, and
Yes.
I think
Yeah, part of it.
his pivot
He was
against
like,
it
yeah,
was
there's
like,
bigger fish to fry besides taping someone's mouth shut. But
Well,
like, well,
yeah,
what if that's a catalyst?
there,
well,
there is.
yeah.
I agree. Yeah,
You know what? Someone shared this quote with me recently. I think it's by Buckminster Fuller, and it's, don't try to teach anyone anything. Instead, give them a product, the use of which will inspire new ways of thinking. And so, mouth tape, when
Mm.
someone puts it on and they see these benefits, they're like, what the fuck is happening to my body? And all of a sudden, they're like, wait, I'm guaranteeing nasal breathing. So, what does that do? Why does nasal breathing make me sleep better? So, I guess if you consider that perspective, then I do, and behavior change, then I will, in a way, agree with this doctor that there are much bigger fish to fry. And this goes back with what I was saying earlier. Like, if you can set the physiological stage for sleep, you're not going to need the fucking mouth tape. If you're using mouth tape as an excuse to neglect the habits and the understanding and the awareness, like, all right, now you can fuck up.
I wish I had you in the room to back me up, because you would get along with another performance health coach of ours, because like you guys kind of have similar like edging people kind of thing. But like for me, I just kind of like, well, since I don't have certain things behind my name, I'm gonna shut down now, because I really don't like, I this doctor now, like, I love the doctor and all that stuff, but I'm just not really, I don't have the time to like argue with someone.
Yeah. Well, but I mean, like, because your specialty is like, again, body awareness, sleep. It seems like a big focus for you. Breath
They're
work
very
as
big on
well.
sleep. Actually,
Yeah, yeah.
I actually just finished creating a 100-page webinar that summarizes all of the best research
Dude.
to this day that we have on sleep. And it's interesting because it's like I always start with the why, the how, and finally the what. If you had a biohacker, a real biohacker, prepare this guide, they would just take you to the what. That's it. At least
Mm.
There
most
it
of them,
is.
and truth. Whereas it's like 100 something pages, like 110 pages, and it's like the first 60 pages are like, why do we sleep? How does it work? Um, last like I think the last like 10 are like the actual like action items or like what to do. So it's like by the time people get to that, they actually know when and exactly how to dose these specific strategies. And we reinforce that kind of awareness before we reinforce the behaviors or hacks, if you will.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's
So,
funny.
well,
I tell Marcos this all the time, and my clients all the time. If it wasn't my background in exercise science, I probably would have gotten my studies in sleep sciences because I love locking in sleep. You know, it's like my favorite thing. There's like 1,000 things that I do. I don't want to get into them because you probably know them, but like for the audience, like if you were to like come to my place and sleep, you'd be like, this guy's weird as that. But it's what I love.
you
It's
got
what
a
I love.
Faraday sex cage in that room.
That's just one of the. That's just one of the. You know, one of the. That's
Okay.
like that's a warm up level, Marcos. I'm just kidding.
Hawaii, Faraday sex dungeon, Faraday sex dungeon.
Everything is grounded literally to the earth or plugged into the soil. That is
Yeah.
some shit. But so, okay, so you spend again, you know, over half the book discussing the why we sleep. And it brings me a question. Have you seen that? I think it was just a one-off Netflix movie where they're all sleep deprived and they're all like going slightly insane after like day
Yeah,
3 of no sleep, and then by like day 7 you're like effectively dead. Like
Oh my
yeah.
gosh.
that movie was a trip in terms of like I actually kind of like read through like the different signs or stages of like the sleep deprivation, and I mean I was like I didn't yeah like what that's a good question, like why do we sleep, Andres? Like obviously you spend a lot of time like into that, like why do we need it? Like we spend a third of our life doing it for the most part, right? Like why do we need so much of it?
It's the 1/3 of our life that makes our the other 2/3 as great as they can be. And as far as exactly why we sleep, it's very difficult to answer that question because even the best researchers in the world, and some of them are even Nobel Prize winners, they don't have the exact answer. There's a lot of things that I can take you through that shows you essentially why, but there's still a lot of stuff that is unknown about sleep. And before I answer that question in depth, I'll say that actually just give you this example in the Guinness Book of World Records. They actually had to totally remove any record to do with sleep deprivation because it was shown to be such a potent carcinogenic. Uh, uh, like it was
Mm,
cancer causing, and it was setting the stage for disease to thrive. And it's like when we sleep, we get the chance to repair, recover, remember, refine skills. And it's again because our intelligent body knows what it needs to do and it can orchestrate all these physiological functions that prepares for the next day. So throughout the day, we're engaged. We have all these inputs and these outputs, and we're engaged in all kinds of activities and behaviors and decisions. And in order for our brain to kind of process all this, filter through, like literally sift through all things that you're doing and say, this is important, this is not so important. How can we, double down on more of this? How can we regulate our hormones so that they are more in line with what we want to do and what we want to optimize for? Like, if you, I'll say this, like, I think it's also very important for people to know what they want to set goals in their life because the body can orchestrate physiological function in a way a little better. Like if you know you're going to wake up the next day, do something specific, you are probably going to be a little more invested in the decisions that you make the day before. And through your sleep, you get to refine those decisions and those skills and those memories in such a way that really brings you closer and closer to that ideal. And so, in a lot of ways, we sleep because our body needs to process and refine and sift through this information in in a space where it is not constantly being interrupted or interfered with. So you should
mm,
always opt for a sleep environment that feels as safe as possible. It's one of the reasons why I say that it's just one of the worst things you can do is bring your cell phone or your laptop into the bedroom because all of a sudden you invite the responsibility that you need to handle that literally keeps you alive in this modern day. And as soon as you invite that into the bedroom, now you've made this super safe or supposedly safe and peaceful environment. Now you've made an environment of stress, and now every time you walk into
Yeah.
that bedroom, you're stressing yourself out.
Yeah.
And whereas if you make it as safe as possible, like the bedroom is for two things: it's for sleeping and making
Sleep
love,
and
right?
sex. Yeah, I mean,
Sleeping is
it's so funny. The
right.
two S's. I mean,
So
I
it's
got
like
to hang out with Sean Stevenson like once or twice. He had the book called Sleep Smarter, right? And it was like the 21 tips, whatever. And when I got to hang out with him, like he literally looked at me, and I was with my lady, and he goes, because we're getting the book signed. He's like, "So you guys got no TV in there, huh? Got nothing else in there, huh?" I'm like, "No, we got to change. Like we got to take out the TV, we have to like everything, and like put the phone in the other room." It's like that right now, like that to me was some of the most profound stuff, because I could be on the phone forever. It's so easy to be like, oh, bunch of emails, a bunch of emails or
yeah,
whatever. So
the
yeah.
issue is that our modern lives are inherently overstimulating, and this makes the promise of productivity, but instead it guarantees a detrimental contribution to its most essential prerequisite, which is sleep. Like you will be the most
Mm-hmm.
productive, you'll be the fittest, you'll be the smartest if you're sleeping your best. And oftentimes the questions that I ask folks, because a lot of people, I start working with them, they go, "Oh no, but I sleep fine." We'd have to like, fuck, I don't want to get the wearable, like I don't need any. And it's again, they're so comfortable with this baseline, they don't know what it's like to sleep and feel amazing. So I ask these questions, these probing questions, and I'll share them with you guys now. When was the last time you woke up feeling refreshed and energized? When was the last time, like, are you using caffeine to stay focused and productive within 10 hours of your bedtime? Because let's face it, the half of caffeine is 5 hours. So if you're using caffeine within 10 hours of your bedtime, for most people, because we have different, liver enzymes and we can process it differently. But for most people, if you're having that within 10 hours of your bedtime, what happens is you create this bad positive feedback loop. It's a negative positive feedback loop in the sense that it's a vicious cycle. Like you are not getting lower quality sleep, so you're more likely to choose more caffeine in the next day. And then you have more caffeine, so you get even worse sleep. And it's like this perpetual cycle of being caffeinated and getting poor sleep. Another question is, are you using your phone in slash right before bed? Are you getting direct sunlight within the first 10 minutes? So for at least 10 minutes within an hour of waking to prime your circadian rhythm? Are you hashtag team no sleep because you're under the impression that you can get more accomplished by sleeping less? And so it's like these questions I think help a lot of folks reflect in this modern day and help them realize that if they want to make more out of the remaining 2/3 of their life, they have to really pay a lot of attention to that 1/3. And it's something that even
Yeah.
if you can improve your sleep by 5%, like anybody tuning into this podcast can improve their sleep by 5%. And if we have a life expectancy of, let's say, 75 years on average, that's 25 years of your life that you're sleeping. 25 years. If you can improve those 25 years by another 5%, think about the influence that that'll have on your quality of life, on your ability to perform, on your ability to win in life. So, yeah, anyway, and
Yeah.
then look, I mentioned a bunch of the benefits of sleep, but quite literally, your body cleans up cellular debris. Toxins are flushed down through the lymphatic system of the brain. You get the memory consolidation. It actually happens during REM sleep. So while deep sleep is important, everyone likes to say, "Oh yeah, I'm getting more deep sleep." Like you also should be experiencing REM sleep to make new memories, to filter out the unimportant. Like when the last time you guys drove a car, you can't remember everything that you saw on the road because your body knows it's not essential information. It literally filters it out. Whereas the important decisions that you made that were in line with the things that you want to do, the things you want to accomplish, those things are reinforced. And they're further
Yeah.
reinforced, and the skills behind those things are further reinforced if you're sleeping better. And the body repairs itself so you can better gain muscle. You can literally spend less time in the gym. If you're recovering harder through sleep, you're going to make more gains with less effort. You restore your adrenal glands. You detoxify your liver. You boost immune function. So one way I like to describe this, it's like imagine if you're getting bad sleep or you're just not sleeping properly, it's like running a computer on old software. So you're getting all kinds of glitches, you're overheating, you have slow processing speeds, you have bugs. Literally, if you look at your genetics, like there's issues in gene expression if you're not sleeping properly because you're not giving the body to
Yeah.
do what it's designed to do. Your hormones are depleted, you're in a catabolic state, your immune system is weak, you are setting the stage for burnout. The old software can't meet the demands of the ever evolving system. So it's literally like a software update. Sleep is your daily software update. Anyway,
I
that's
love
my
that.
that's my little
No,
little rant
no,
about sleep.
thanks for sharing. I honestly, it ties back literally to like what you said at the beginning of the podcast, interoception or just being able to be inside and be able to kind of take some time to then go do the 2/3 of life, to go then do productivity. It has to be stillness, it being the key with sleep to really restore and lock it in. Because I think sometimes people forget, like, I think this is a great example, maybe Marcos. It's just like, I think people ask this all the time about leverage and time. It's like, well, I want to make more money. Okay. Yeah, I'm just going to work harder. How's that
Yeah.
working for you? Oh, I'm just going to work more hours. Really? Like, so it's the same thing. It's being able to be interoceptive, come in the inside for a little bit, think a little bit more depthly about that, see the systems around that thing you're trying to do, whether it's sleep or your work, and then make it better, optimize for it, and then leverage the next 2 to 3/3. But yeah, Marcos, what were you trying to
And
say?
just like if you jump in, like most people might be under the impression now that I'm just going to recommend they get more hours because most people are honestly lacking the hours. But the first thing I'll say is, fuck the hours. You need more sleep efficiency. With the hours that you currently can afford, maximize those hours. There are so
Mm-hmm,
many
mm-hmm.
things that you can do to maximize the little hours that you get. There's times where I can literally only afford 4.5 hours, 3 REM cycles, and I do everything I can to maximize those. And maybe I'll follow a polyphasic sleep pattern a day. Maybe I'll get some strategic napping throughout the day to compensate and get my 5 full REM cycles. There's so many things that you can do, but the number one thing is sleep efficiency, not the more hours. Everyone's like, oh, I don't have time for the
Yeah.
8 hours I have kids. All right, go hang out with the kids. 6 hours, make the most of what you've got with those 6 hours.
So you just said you try to aim for 5 REM cycles, so 90-minute. So
Yeah,
now, so 7.5 hours is effectively what you're aiming for
on
as like
average.
maybe an average gold standard. It's
Yeah.
so funny though, because like my body literally is in tune for like exactly 7.5 hours of sleep right now. Like, and it's like literally like if I try to push my bedtime up a little, it's like I'm gonna try to go to bed like at 9, so I can just like get like a little bit more. It's like nope. Literally, sometimes it'll be like right in the middle of that 5th cycle where I'm up and I'm just like, let's fucking go. And I'm like, dude, really?
Let's
It's
go.
3:30. It's 3:30 in the fucking morning. Like, there's no reason to be up right now. But it's just like you're ready. And I'm like, all right, well, guess I'm just gonna go do something. I have no idea, but I know if I go back for that. Explain this. Maybe like why is it that like if you could wake up at 3:30, you're actually waking up at 4:30. That 1 hour window, is it because it's not 90 minutes that you wake up groggy as hell? You're like ready to go at 3:30, but you're gonna try to go back
Like
because your
some
alarm is
sleep
going off at
inertia.
4:30.
Sorry, what's the question?
Like, why do you get that groggy feeling when you have like that small little like after I guess after bedtime nap where you're up before your alarm, but you're like I still got time before my alarm goes off to get to my day.
So I can't give you a super clear answer, but something that I'll say right off the bat is if you're setting an alarm to wake up significantly earlier than what you're used to, just the act of setting an alarm, by the way, literally keeps your cortisol levels a little higher because there's a stress of I need to meet this deadline. And just literally, just the act of setting an alarm, even if you set the alarm, there's studies that have been done on this. Even if you set the alarm to beyond the time that you'd wake up, the setting of an alarm creates more stress and takes away from sleep quality. And so when I have these super early commitments, and I set the alarm, I will wake up sometimes multiple times before that alarm because my body's like, oh my God, what if I miss this deadline? So do everything you can to wake up without an alarm. And if you have to use
Mm.
one and wake up significantly earlier, like you're, it's not the most ideal thing. You wake up feeling groggy because you're probably waking up in not in the lightest stage of sleep, or you just haven't timed your alarm correctly. So I'm really big on timing alarms correctly according to where you're all on your REM cycle. So a very simple formula is let's say it's a certain time of the night and you have a certain amount of hours before you have to wake up. Find a multiple of 90 minutes, which is on average the length of a REM cycle, and then add in the approximate amount of time based on how you feel that it's going to take you to fall asleep. So if you're very stressed out, if you're very much awake, it can take you up to 30 minutes. So if you can only get, let's say, 4 REM cycles, which is 6 hours, then you should plan your alarm for 6.5 hours after that time. Like when you're about to get in bed, plan it for 6.5 hours. Like it would be a crime if you're super awake and you are having trouble falling asleep and then you set it for 6 hours, you're gonna wake up during the middle of a deep sleep, the deep sleep portion of the cycle, and you're gonna wake up super stressed because the only reason that you should be waking up during deep sleep is because there's a genuine environmental stressor that's life threatening, like I don't know, a severe weather pattern or like some kind of predator, like waking up during a deep stage of sleep is so stressful. You want to time it so that you
Mm.
wake up back up in that REM cycle, in that light stage of sleep, and you're going to be super refreshed, super energized. So let's say you did this
Yeah.
correctly, and let's say you set the alarm. for 4:30, and that was according to the formula that I just described. If you accidentally wake up at 3:30, you're absolutely going to be groggy because you're going to be in a deep stage sleep.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying the
Yeah.
opposite. Like I go back to sleep for that hour, but same idea, same principle. You'd
Yeah, I
still
mean, you can go back to
waking up from
sleep.
this deep, still like in that deep stage sleep, and it's like a jolt to the system, and then it's like you weren't ready for it. So it probably does make sense on those days to just be like, well, I guess I'm just gonna go downstairs and do something. I don't know. It's dark
If
as
you
hell
have
at
to wake
3:30,
up
but
earlier, I would say give yourself more hours to spend in bed than what you'd imagine, just to compensate for number one, the fact that it's a circadian mismatch. Like you're not going to have accumulated as much melatonin as you're used to, so it's going to be more difficult to actually fall into a deep sleep. And then because of the stress of having to wake up early, you might end up waking up more often. And the combination of
yeah.
those two things, you should just try to get more
Marcos,
hours than you think you need.
when's the
You know
last?
what?
Yeah.
Nah, this is a kids issue, guys. This is a straight kids issue.
Let me
I
ask you this.
promise.
Let me ask you this, Marcos. Let me ask you this, and we'll kind of end it here. I just want to make sure we're appropriate for Andrew's time. Marcos, when's the last time you did 3 to 5 days of camping?
Camping?
Mm-hmm.
Man, I was a kid, bro. I missed those days. Probably do them. We'll probably do them once Ari gets a little bit older. You
Okay.
know, but
That'll fix it. I tell people all the time, I'm like, do 3 to 5 days of camping. Sometimes I do
yeah,
cowboy camping, like where I do backpacking, and I'll go in there, and I don't have a tent. I just kind of just go sleep on the ground. And 3 to 5 days, you come back, you're like, wow, oh, this is my natural sleep cycle, and like my circadian rhythm's like
Oh
kind
yeah,
of get away from the phone and stuff.
yeah. I don't know.
there's
I
a lot
mean,
of things you can do to
I get that.
manipulate that as well.
Yeah, like for me, I think my biggest manipulation tactic has been setting the actual bedtime, like rhythm, right? Kind of based off of I know it takes me, like you said, this many hours. This like kind of aligns me with those blocks of 90, and I took that obviously like a la Andrew Huberman. I think was one of his big ones in early episodes, and like the phone just gets boring. It's literally there's no more alerts. It's gone. It's like, all right, well, there's nothing here. Like because obviously when you see the badge or those things you're immediately wanting to go to those things to clear it off. It's like that psychology of like, I just don't want anything on here. People that have like a million emails that are unread bothers the shit out of me. So like the fact that everything's gone, I'm like, there's no stress right now. Work is over. Like it, and it's like, all right, cool. And some nights now it's just been like, because it's been probably 3-4 months with doing that. I'm like, all right, like just the phone, like I know if I go into like Instagram or something like that, it can lead to some of those doom scrolling things or some laughable things. It's just like, yeah, just plug it in, step away from it, and then you're likely going to be better. But I mean, I'm sure it could be even better because now I've been dealing with like waking up with maybe a little bit of cotton mouth, so I'm assuming I'm doing more mouth breathing than I am nasal breathing,
Oh
right?
yeah,
So that's why I asked, that selfishly asked the question about because I've been like, do I buy the fucking mouth tape? Do I just
It's
like ensure
$5.
that it can be?
it helps.
Yeah, it's
It helps.
I'll bring some to you, Marcos, when I
and
see you next.
I know August 25th I'll get some mouth tape from Seamus. It's like the shipment package ever. So
Look, no, I think we could keep going on this, but we are hour 15. I just want to make sure, Andres, we're set here. But Andres, would you mind just sharing kind of where people can find you, what you're up to? Just kind of to finish up, we'll get that in the show notes. But other than that, man, anything else to kind of finish off the pod today?
Yeah, man. I just want to say thank you guys for the opportunity to be here on the show with you. It's been amazing to be able to interact with you, and I really appreciate you guys sharing your own insights, your own stories, and anything else that can maybe motivate the listeners by showing them unique examples of how this substance can be useful and valuable. So I really appreciate you guys jumping in and sharing that. And I would say, man, like if there's anything I'm passionate about is in people discovering their science. And I felt like it was so unfair that I had to take courses in school, pay tuition, show up to class to learn these things about my body and my mind. That just seems so totally unfair. And I'm trying to make this as accessible as possible for people. I do work with some super high end and exclusive clients. And so in that format, maybe not so much, but by being in that format, I get to see what the rest of the world is lacking. I get to see that contrast, and it further motivates me to do my podcast and write my articles and be on Instagram, whatever. So I suggest that for anyone that wants to learn to discover their science and optimize their life, yeah, you can, find me on Instagram at Andrés Preschel. That's AndresPreschel. Same as my website. It's just myname.com. knowyourphysio.org, knowyourphysio.org. And then I also do coaching for, the big CEOs and professionals and world leaders through Dream Health, where I'm founding member, head of health coaching and education, and that's drym.health. So yeah, you guys can find me there. You can shoot me an email, andres@knowyourphysio.org, and check out my podcast, Know Your Physio.
Nice. Awesome, man. All those things that he just said, check below, because we make sure that there's no typos in there, because people, hell, we were joking about, like, do you think people could spell perspective at times? Like, I fucked it up the other day, and our producer's like, really? I was like, no, not really, but like, sometimes I write perspective, not perspective, but like, it happens. So
The word
all of us are spell
physiology,
checking.
yeah, for me, when
Yeah.
I started taking physiology classes, like I thought it was a joke how often I would misspell physiology, and now I will sometimes give myself shit for literally building that into my brand name. But I'm like, if people can spell this word, they've already gotten so far, because now they know, now they have so much more access to this vast world of applied science, which is tremendously valuable. So I honestly, now I take pride in creating a little bit of a barrier of entry. Um,
Hey,
so
yeah. Hey, it's, the nonprofit I form is Axiom, and a lot of people are going to mess that up, but it's okay, because once they know the name, axioms are these foundational principles that are rooted in everything, right?
oh wow,
Therefore, that again, like the mathematical mind, just like you have like that deep interest in science, like as do I, and those ties to these particular words, they mean a lot to us, right? And it obviously shows, because it's part of your, part of the brand, which is super important. So
got it on my
that's
shirt.
why we put it in the show notes.
Know
Yeah,
your
there it is, right? It's on his shirt. Oh, my PS, your logo is sick. I love the combination of like the thumbprint, like that in addition to the brain. When I saw that, I was like, that is
it's
well
no,
worked through. I'm sure there's,
it's like know, like your brain, your
yeah,
physiology. Your physiology is unique, like your fingerprint, like your
like a,
DNA. So know your physio. Yeah.
yeah. And as we get our logo up, we have something very similar. The roots of a tree are a brain, and then the tree is sprouting up. So growth mindset literally
Oh
encapsulated
wow.
into what is now the macro perspective. So,
Oh
I
wow.
mean, it was like we see these combination of things, and it's like it means a lot to us, right? And like that's why we spell those words. That's why we spell it for you. Like, and that's why like you can right click shit and then you can get to the websites for the people and not mess it up and find everybody, especially because I have an ethnic name, Seamus has an ethnic name, you have an ethnic name, right? Because we're all just the unique people trying to make a difference in this world. So check the show notes, guys. We spend a lot of time on those. We'd appreciate some feedback. With that, comments, questions, concerns, direct questions for Andres, that'd be amazing. I know we want to definitely have another deeper dive, because I know we only scraped the surface of like one of, I don't even know how many things are in like your, understanding and tool belt, but I would love to learn more. So I mean, we'll have to do this again sometime soon, man. We appreciate your time. And until
Absolutely.
next time, guys, Macro Perspective is out.
Thank you.